Grant start out, tell us about his ski collection, and then we'll have this lovely panel of craft ski makers. And Dave Schmidt will be our moderator. Let me see if I can introduce all of you. Eric Adelston from Exotic Skis. We have Ben Farasi from White Room. Lars from Silo Skis. I just met these guys tonight.
Awesome.
Cyrus from Linnell, thank you for the hints. And Jason from J Skis. And of course, and Grant, which I want to give. We also have to thank our sponsors, Vermont Ski and Ride. The Alchemist for the Focal Banger, Old Hollow Cider.
My name's Dave Schmidt, and she got roped in, then she roped me in. I did one of these in Burlington last year in the Startup Vermont Week, which is a lot of fun. So my background, just so there's a little justification for me sitting here, is I started skiing late at 14. Started working in a ski shop, I think on my 16th birthday. Stayed in and out of that shop. That shop got me through high school, through college, and then some. It was a ski market chain out of Boston, but it was in their Albany store. Then I went to the dark side, and I'm going to put this all up front. I worked for Burton Snowboards for, I got hired even before I started snowboarding, but I moved to Vermont, started working for Burton. I worked there for 17 years, and I still snowboard, but I also ski. I have kids now, and I have not gotten them on snowboards. They're very good skiers, so I ski with them occasionally, and I also snowboard. But I've been in and out of around the industry forever, and it's pretty much how I grew up. And I love the backside, the behind the curtains part of this business. And I thought this would be a lot of fun. I'm gonna give brief intros to each of these guys rather than doing the everybody kind of whatever. They'll talk plenty tonight, but I'll do quick intros, and I found some dirt on most of them. So, but we're gonna start with the outsider, and that's Eric. Eric doesn't make skis. Eric talks about skis and he writes about skis, and he probably knows more about skis than anybody else in his room. Just talking to him for a few minutes. But he's got a website called exoticskis.com. By my count, he had 383 different brands of skis talked about on that website. A lot of links, a lot of information, a lot of reviews. Eric's an encyclopedia of what's happening in this world of craft ski making right now, and brings a ton of information to this. So it's something, if you haven't been to his website, and I had never been to it, you got to go check it out because it's pretty cool. You've got an environmental law degree, I think, from Vermont Law School?
Yeah.
And let's see, there was one there. And you make apps for a living or something like that.
Yeah, software pays the bills.
There you go. Exactly. Skiing doesn't pay a lot of the bills for a lot of people. So Oliver, where are you? Oliver doesn't, he makes skis, but nobody can buy them. Okay? He makes them for himself, and you can't even beg him. He said he'll sell you a used pair that when he's done with it. And that's about it. He works over at Smugs. He's been there for a long time, and he's making some cool skis in his spare time. It sounds like you do a lot of testing for backcountry.
I used to.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
4 or 5 years worth. Yeah.
so you spend a lot of time on skis.
Obsessively.
Yeah.
Being a Smugs guy, that's an understatement.
Yeah. So you spend a lot of time on lifts over there.
No, I'm just getting that now. Yeah. Those lifts are normal to us.
I'm a Bolton, okay? I get it. Lars is, he's out of Richmond. It's Silo Skis. A production of about 30, 40 pairs a year, somewhere in there.
Yeah, roughly.
Huge. Carpenter to pay the bills? Or is the skiing now making
a lot of random stuff.
Okay. Whatever it takes, right? You're a Vermonter. You're from Vermont originally. You went out west, but you came back, like we all do.
Yeah.
And then there's some. What's your involvement with Yestermar? You instruct down there, or is that?
I'm on their list of instructors.
Okay.
I mean, part of what I do is I teach workshops so people can come in and build alongside me, which is really the most fun for me. I'd much rather do that than build on my own.
Then we have Vin. Vin's White Room Custom Skis in Hyde Park. I think you 50, 60 pairs a year?
No, it's much
40?
less than that. I'm trying to get up to 20.
Trying to get up to 20, okay. Yep, so there it is, 20 a year. Yeah. Source is your cores in Vermont.
Yeah, all of my core hardwood comes from a guy that he's got a wood lot in Underhill, and he cuts his lumber there. I go to his house. He's got a kiln. He kiln dries the lumber on his house on his property at his house, and I go through and I pick through his stack and I select what I want and I bring it to my shop and I turn it into skis.
That's cool.
You got an MS in biomechanics, so you
Yeah.
kind of understand how it all works,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm got those letters behind my name. Yeah.
And you do have a day job as well.
Yeah, I'm an athletic trainer. I work at Copley Hospital.
There you go. His skis are absolutely gorgeous, Cyrus. Cyrus is Renowned Skis. Came out of nowhere took a pair of skis to ISPO a couple of years ago, and in front of all the major ski manufacturers walked away with a gold award at ISPO. ISPO is the huge trade fair in Munich every year, and they do it awards, and his ski was so innovative that they gave him the gold award at ISPO, which he, even though he said he doesn't stop talking about it on his website.
Let's talk about that.
Yes, you've got a degree in aerospace engineering?
No, I dropped out.
You dropped out. So,
I quickly
like Steve
realized.
Jobs, like...
No.
You've got a background, put it that way.
Yeah, I studied aeronautical engineering.
Okay, there you go.
No more questions.
But Cyrus, in his studies, he was working with a material that is called a non-Newtonian polymer, correct? Is that, yeah. And it has some very unique characteristics which nobody had yet applied to a ski. So he said this could be a cool ski core material, and applied it to skis, and so far it's gone pretty well. And the skis are what is a non-Newtonian polymer, and what does it do in a ski?
Sure. All right, so non-Newtonian, basically, we all know sterilizing clean, right? Yeah, all right, cool. So it doesn't follow those rules. Essentially, think of silly putty, right? Kind of gooey, soft substance. Imagine taking that and punching it, and in the process of punching, it's rock hard. Similar concept, a little more sophisticated, but we put that inside of a ski. So as you ski faster or harder, you come up a jump, you had a Red Bull, you had a coffee, or you jazz in the morning, that ski is literally getting stiffer for the instant in time that it hits that snow. So think like small little impacts. You know, every time an ice particle or your ski hits the snow hard, that ski's essentially getting stiffer by a rate of 300%. So that's what we won the ISPO Gold for, was the fact that we made the first ski in the world that came off a production run as one kind of ski, and as you're taking on different conditions or different, you've got different energy level in it, so you're skiing faster, slower, different kind of ice. It's going to adapt and match those conditions in the blink of an eye. So that's what we wanted ISPO Gold for, and it was just one of those ideas that you're in college one day, like, oh, we should try this thing out. And then you get some data back, and it was like, oh, it's 300% like more stable and damped and stiff. And so we decided ISPO, and I didn't even know what ISPO was. So,
But you won.
now I know.
He also won the Launch VT, or Start VT last year in Burlington, a business contest, which was pretty cool. And he's made headlines both in ski and mass media with his Trump versus Clinton ski and the Bernie ski.
Yep.
So some pretty cool marketing. That's cool. All right. Then there's Jason. Jason's learned about skiing through the school of hard knocks in many ways, but he's had a good time doing it. He started line skis in his garage, in your garage, right? Actually, it was a school project at college. and was probably the biggest disruption in the ski industry at the time, for sure. Here's this punk kid making these short, wide, super edgy skis, twin tips, which nobody had heard of a twin tip really before that. Wearing beanies with his pulled down over his eyes. I mean, I grew up in the ski industry, and the ski industry, you know, quite honestly, is pretty stodgy for a long time and pretty stale. And here's this kid that shows up with these twin tips, and the kids just love him. And he can't, you know, he starts a ski company around it called Lion Skis. Can't make them quick enough. Learned about all the dark side of the ski industry and the needs to finance inventory and the terms that retailers want that are absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, and it keeps going and going and going. He sold Lion Skis to K2. While K2 owned it, you started Full Tilt Boots because the boot side needed some innovation. There was no innovation
Working
there.
for those guys.
Yeah, working for those guys. And then pulled the chute to say this is a little crazy. And then started a new ski company called J Skis, taking all the dark side of the entire ski industry and throwing it in the trash can and saying, I'm going to do it my way. Sells direct to consumer only, as does Cyrus. I think all you guys direct to consumer only. There's no retailers involved anywhere here. But you know, Cyrus and Jay don't make their own skis. They have somebody else make them for them. That's their own designs. And then they do the sales and marketing side of it and the design side of it. But Jay's a brilliant when it comes to direct-to-consumer marketing in the ski industry. Limited edition runs, cool graphics, very artsy-based. Collaborates a lot with a lot of different people. Am I missing anything?
No, it's funny. That's good.
You got an X Game bronze medal with those twin tips back in the day.
1997.
With Mike Nick, who's another Burlington kid. So, yeah. All right. I think I covered all of it there. So there you go. You got two guys that have somebody else make them, but they're designing their sales and marketing, and then you've got the hands-on, fingers in the epoxy group. Looking through their social media, a lot of clamps involved.
You never have enough.
You can never have enough clamps. What's that?
Clamps for days.
You can never have enough.
Clamps for days. So I guess the way we'll go from here is I'll ask a few questions and then we're going to just open it up, and I hope you guys have questions that you can throw out there. And you know, I think the one question that keep coming back to me was like, what's your motivation? You know, what you all kind of have a little bit different business, but what's the motivation behind what you do? And I'm not gonna go around the room. Anybody wants to take it, and then people can jump in from there.
For me, I just want to make skiing better and more fun, and it's always been that mission. Of course, for me anyway, it's my living, so I do need to make a living doing it, but I just always saw opportunity to improve the sport, especially when you're looking at snowboarding back in like 1995 when I started the company. Skiing was very stagnant, it was super traditional, it was all based on racing, yet very few people actually raced, so everyone was forced to ride race skis even though they were only powder skiing, or they were only in the moguls, or they were only cruising around, or only want to do a daffy or a twister. They were still on these race skis. So for me, I just thought, hey, why not make a ski for what you're actually doing? And seeing snowboarding taking off at the time in the 90s, they were better at floating in the powder, they were better at carving, you can go backwards, you can do tricks. There's so much more energy around snowboarding because you can do more on it. So really, I just always had a mission to rejuvenate skiing for myself originally, and then once I realized the ski is a lot more fun, I wanted to do it for everyone else. And the same reason you introduce your friend to the sport is the reason that I make skis and every day think, how can I make these more fun, or better, or different at whatever I want to do on them.
Cool. Anybody else want to jump in? How about the handcrafters?
I never intended to sell a pair of skis. I literally started out making skis for myself, and it was just something enjoyable for me because I love skiing and I love skis, and if I could have bought a new pair of skis every year, I would have, but I didn't have that kind of money, so I started building skis for myself. And I was getting feedback from friends and family that I'd built skis for, and they're like, those are pretty good. And then I started getting questions in lift line. Dude, where are those from? Do you get those out in Utah? How can I get a pair? How much do they cost? And after thousands of questions like that, I said, there really aren't that many people in Vermont doing this. And the feedback's good. Maybe I can do something with this. And it really is still just something that I enjoy. It's something that I do on a part-time basis. I would like to have that grow to some degree, but it may never be my full-time income. But it doesn't mean that it's not super important to me and that I put my heart and soul into every pair I build.
Anybody else want to jump in?
For me, it's more like Jay said, like it's just fun. Like it's something to do that's fun. And I was a custom home builder for a long time and could see the foremen ahead of me that were in their 50s and 60s, and I'm like, I'm gonna end up with a bad back and I can't walk. And I love building stuff and I love creating things, and so if I can do something where I can develop a product or just make a product, I'm not really developing anything because everything has come down the pipeline, but if I can create something that somebody gets joy out of on a daily basis, like that's kind of the pinnacle of like doing anything. And then doing the workshops is even better bonus because I love teaching people stuff and they get to come in and see what it's like. I think I was telling Eric earlier, I had these two brothers come in to do a workshop they're in their 50s, 60s, and they're like, I had no idea it took this many little thousands of steps to build a pair of skis. Like, it's just like tiny little things here and there. So it's fun to just share that with people.
Eric, we were talking before, and maybe just kind of give people an idea of the landscape that we're in with the whole craft movement that's going on out there.
Sure. Well, we keep track of all the small builders around the world. We've been building this site for about 12 years now. We keep track of it, and it's now up to 380 some odd ski companies, not including the Big Ten, Fisher Elan, Dina Star, Rosno, all those guys are heard of in the shops. What you're seeing here in Vermont is a microcosm of what's happening all over the world. Because of the internet, because people can get rolls of bases, rolls of edges, materials, epoxies, cores, top sheets, covers, all this stuff, and new printers and websites that talk about people starting up their own skis, either whether it's homemade or pre-production testing or whatever it is. Every place around the world, I lived in Europe for almost 3 years in France and talked to a bunch of ski builders in Europe, all over there. And we keep conversations going with all these builders all over the world. You're seeing that in the old days, ski areas had their own ski builders for that valley, that snow condition, that terrain, those kind of skiers. It's coming back to that. And the US is the highest density of micro builders in the world. Europe's got a bunch, we've got more. But what you're seeing here is a microcosm of all these same guys. You've got everything from outsourcing high-tech designs to production facilities to artisanal craft work to there's a bunch of guys who aren't here today that are still out in the woodwork there that are making homemade skis. They turn into garage brands, small production houses, slightly larger. They're going into mass production where they partner with other people to outsource some skis or components and things like that. But we've got the full spectrum here of all these kinds of skis. And we've tested samples of skis from all these guys pretty much. And they're 100% solid. And the thing is, they all have different personalities. And you can email or call these guys up and say, I want to ski this just like this, but a little bit different. Can you tweak it? Or what do you have that might fit this bill? And they can produce them. And it's kind of gone full circle. The old history is back again. You can talk to your local ski builder and know that this thing is, these skis were manufactured less than a bunch of hours, from where you're going to use them. And that's pretty cool. And the performance and the quality is top shelf. And a lot of these guys are putting double the warranty on these products that they're putting out there because their hands are building these things. They'll say, yeah, I'll give you 2 years, give you, ski them for 100 days. If you don't like them, send them back and get your money back. Pretty hard to do at your local ski market. But very cool because these guys want to make cool toys for people who appreciate cool toys. And it's really fun. And they buy local as much as they can or outsource to somebody who's making their materials locally. And it's a question of, for us, we're biased. We like small ski builders, and we like to support those guys. We try and spread the word about them by doing some on-snow tests. We have a small crew of testers, and I gather all the comments, we publish them. And so people can find out that, hey, there's something else besides a Rosinal ski out there, and you can buy it and try it. And this is what it feels like. This is the personality. And it's just like craft brews, exactly the same thing. Now, every city you go to has a bunch of craft beers, and they're all excellent in their own way. They have different flavors, different personalities, and that's what you can get. So it's a really cool time to be a skier. And most of these guys, they have demos available at different mountains at different times. You can go try them before you buy them.
That's their excuse to go ski and get a free
Which is
lift
cool.
ticket.
Yeah, on powder days, the powder skis are gone and the guys are gone. They leave
Yeah.
somebody else in the
Yeah.
tent, and they're like nowhere to be found.
Or the self-serve demo where the skis are just
Right.
there, there's nobody.
Be back in a few runs. But it's a microcosm of what's happening around the world. And every ski country, we're getting skis now. We're going to be getting some skis from Spain, which is kind of a weird thing. And all over the world, there's all kinds of stuff. And the factories are ramping up. And the factories that used to go stale and dark in the off-season from the big companies, Elan and Rosinal, and there's a bunch in Poland, there's a bunch in Czechoslovakia, there's a whole bunch all over the place. They don't go dark anymore during the summer months. They're building short runs for the smaller companies to keep their guys busy, they're keeping them employed, cranking out the epic designs, because they'll send over CAD drawings and specs. A lot of it can be computerized, or they send specs for the molds, and they'll make them up, and they'll shape them, grind them, and lay them up. And bingo, you're keeping those people employed, so it's now a good time to be a skier. You can get any kind of ski you can think of, just like you can get any kind of micro beer. It's kind of cool. And you've got an example of every style here in Vermont, and there's a bunch in Maine, a bunch in New Hampshire, Boston.
What's your sense of how that impacts the industry?
The industry, on their face, I go to the trade shows, and I've been to ISPO, and I try to keep track of what's happening. What small builder is brave enough to go buy a booth at the world's largest ski show, or SIA out west, or even a little Stratton trade show here, and put up their little pop-up tent and try to break into retail? And they're not really that concerned. They don't think it's a big market share. But the funny thing is, every one of those big builders, you'll see these guys take their jackets off, and they'll go try these small ski brands at the trade shows and come back. And they'll take pictures and they'll take measurements and stuff.
At Cyrus's booth at SIA a couple of years ago, he was kind of keeping a keen eye for the major players that were swinging by and checking it out. He's got some intellectual property he's trying to protect too with his material and stuff. So, there can be that side of the industry where it's a little bit different for the other guys, but he's got some technology he's trying to protect.
Yeah.
Most people aren't aware. Like K2 skis today, it's owned by Newell Brands, which is out of Atlanta, and they own Rubbermaid. And they bought it from Jardin Corp, who owns Mr. Coffee. They own Vocal, they own Marker, they own K2, and they own Line. They own several brands, brands you guys all know, but do you know they're owned by the same company as Rubbermaid? And do you want to buy from a company that makes, come on. And they're trying to dump it because they have no interest in it, but they got it with this other package deal that they got. And Rossi's owned by private investment group from somewhere, somebody with too much money that bought a ski company. The big guys, it's corporate.
I'd even add to that and say, on top of what you said, the real wonderful irony is that all of this happened about the same time that all the big companies were moving offshore.
Yeah.
And that the craft industry was able to grow, and these people are able to sell their products not as an almost as good as product, but with the assumption that it's a better product, and they sell at a premium. And so that's kind of a nice nice
One of
trend.
the things, as far as the industry, your question about that is, the volume that these guys produce, if you add up all these guys, and there's several hundred in the US now, doesn't really spook them very much. What bothers them is that the sales model is direct to consumer. The old model of getting a rep, getting a warehouse, doing wholesaling, dating and pricing, and putting a rep on the road in a van and trying to break into shops that have got too many products on the rack already, or something new, or the same stuff as the other guy down the road. The direct-to-consumer model, for these guys, they can set their pricing based on volume and demand and what they're putting out and the cost of their product. And they're not bound by, minimum advertised price that a retailer has to hold to. If he wants to keep his dealership, he can't sell a ski for less than the minimum advertised allowed price, unless it's quietly and they don't see it. Otherwise, he'll lose his dealership. There's a territorialism about the sales. But this direct-to-consumer thing, the manufacturers have to stay at retail, or at least minimum advertised pricing for that product, because they'll kill their retailers who are spooked and trying to make a living. And a lot of, there may be shop owners here, you're trying to sell this stuff. In the old model,
It's an industry.
they're stuck in it, and the direct-to-consumer is tough.
Well,
These guys are doing it.
Not only that, but the craft-made ski, if you look at the whole picture, is a much better value
Oh, definitely.
for your money, because think of the expense that the, brand name manufacturers are spending on promotion and, the cost of sending the reps out and all of that.
Yeah, they've tried to control that
Yeah,
by, the
yeah,
reps
and the
aren't even
skis-
hired.
The skis are being made in China.
Yeah, and the reps, this cost is killing them, keeping a rep on the road.
Yeah.
Most of the big manufacturers don't have reps, they're contracted. They are independent contractors. They, lease their own trucks. They get out there, they make commissions on sales. But that's what's really spooked the big companies, is the small guys are going direct to consumer, and they're selling boatloads. A lot of them can sell as many as they can make. And
So-
it's got the industry spooked a little bit.
So, how many hours does it take to make a pair of skis?
Well, for me, it's about 16, give or take.
For one pair? Yeah.
That probably doesn't include like graphics design.
It's definitely for me, it's definitely 2 to 3 days. I mean, that's something I'm hoping to cut a whole day off. I just purchased a new
He's growing a
CNC.
third arm.
Yeah, right. I just purchased a new CNC machine, so it's going to hopefully might take my product up a couple notches, and hopefully cut a whole day off my production.
Yeah. I mean, it's an entirely, it's not even there's no comparison compared to there's a hand layup process in every ski, but, once it's in there and it's cooked and it's baked, it's probably a 45-minute.
That's the smallest part of the construction.
It's probably a 45-minute process for the big guys, if that,
Well, it doesn't take me any longer than that.
No,
It's the other stuff. It's making the core and the base and bending the edges by hand. That is the time-consuming part.
Let's take another question. Anybody, in the back?
I've got a quick question, and I don't know what the cost and the retail of your skis are, but I'm a small manufacturer in another niche industry in the rowing business. And I do a direct consumer, the same sort of thing, and there aren't many competitors in there. And I'm looking at your business a little bit like the craft beer business. Budweiser still, and those big companies own 93% of the business, and the craft beer has 6 or 7%. And you guys have maybe that same sort of thing. But the bottom line, you go to the bar, and they can still buy in at $6 a pint or $7 a pint. So how are your guys' prices? And even as a direct manufacturer, you can run a longer margin selling directly, but can you get your prices down so that you can get a level of volume? And I don't know what your prices are right now, but it's so you want to make maybe 50 pairs of skis, not 20 pairs of skis, and so, but it's a price point issue.
It is.
So how do you guys kind of deal with that?
Jay, why don't you start?
And it's a big loaded question.
Yeah, no, so as far as how much the cost of a ski is going to be for a craft company, whether you make it yourself or someone else, maybe $200, okay? Let's say if you made it in Asia, it's like 130 to 160. It's still the same materials, it's still the same process, just he's one person doing it for 3 days, and somewhere else there's 40 people doing it for 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Because there's like a assembly line.
Yeah.
So you make it for $200, let's say, as a small brand, and then if you sold it to a retail store, they need to buy it for no more than 300, so that
and
they
their
can double it and
market's
sell
at
for 6.
6.
So you only made $100. So you have to sell 20,000 skis to pay for everything that she was saying, the sales reps, the trade shows, the catalogs, the margin that you're giving to your dealers, and the sales manager to manage all them, and then the money that you never collect from the dealers, and so on. So you have to be huge, and it takes over a decade. I did it the first time, it took 15 years, and I still never made money, and eventually K2 bought the company to bail me out. So the alternative way is you make it for 200, same price, and then you sell it for 600, and now you made $400, and instead of having to make 20, 30,000 pair, you can make 2,000 pair, and only have you and a buddy running the whole business. Of course, for me, I outsource the factory because there's a lot of cost to that. So there's give and take. Like, you don't, it's like, do you want to own 20 pizza shops or one? Like, you're going to have, at the end of the day, same profit, but 20 times the headache, 20 times the expenses, 20 times the manpower. So it just depends where you want to go. And the reality is, unless you've already been in business for 30, 40 years, you're not going to get there. I mean, I tried it. There's a couple of other companies that have almost got there. There's a glass ceiling. You're not going to get beyond 30,000 pair a year selling to retailers, and you're going to barely break even at that point. So really, the only option is to sell direct.
Right.
So that
No,
you
I
can make
understand-
enough and you
I
sell.
understand that model.
Let's do
But
it, yeah.
more on the consumer pricing, then are you competing above or below the retail?
I'm personally right where the
You're
other,
kind of
right?
competing where that market
I'm
is.
right where it is in the store.
Yeah.
I'm personally not charging more. I'd like to think I'm putting more into the product and selling it to you at a competitive
Oh, I
price.
believe in margins.
Yeah.
I believe in margins.
And that's it, so.
And so, but so from a consumer point of view, like I would be your customer, meaning
Yeah.
that, sure, this guy's gonna make it for me. He's gonna make it to my specs. He's still gonna charge me a retail price. I have a direct relationship with him, and everything is good. Like that's a good model. So
Yeah,
I
and
just didn't know what your prices were.
Yeah, they're just
Lars-
regular. Some people have them a little higher.
Lars and Vin, where are you guys at with your retail price?
I think my average is like $750, but then I can charge more for a workshop. So if you come in and cut your finger off with me, I can charge you more. I get an extra finger and you go away for less money.
So, yeah, and my, if you took a look on the rack there, my skis are a little more time consuming. So right now, full custom everything between shape, length, flex, rocker, camber, graphics, hand cutting all that wood veneer. All those letters that you see on that ski, I cut every single one of them by hand. Okay, it's not machine cut, that's me. $975 for full custom everything.
That's
You know,
a
pricing is where you want to position in the market too.
Right.
And
Well,
when
that's-
you only need to sell 100 pairs or 20 pairs or whatever, you can kind of price it where you want to price it. When with Jay, he's going after a much more youthful market. He's going after the kids in the park and the pipe and stuff like that. So he's got to be a little bit more price sensitive to Cyrus, who's his demographics on the older side, so he can charge a little bit higher premium. And he's got a cool material in there that he pays a lot of money for, so he's
Yeah,
got
'cause on the
to
flip
recover
s-
some of that.
Yeah, because on the flip side, I mean, I don't touch a single ski anymore.
Right, but your
Right.
your
And my
materials
skis
cost is.
are I just sold one today for $1,500.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it just, part of it's like, all right, technology, this inside of it, absolutely. Of course, that's what I'm going to say. But, at the end of the day, it's like a Ferrari. It gets you to A to B, just a little differently.
Well, and it could be on a technology side, you're ahead of the curve, and you're just in the upper end market.
Right. Yeah, we
So
sell, our demographics totally different than Jay's. I don't know, I just don't really know who you guys sell to and stuff like that, but totally different than Jay's, and at least twice my age. So I'm learning that aspect of it.
But that's great to know because it's comparable to, and we go back to the beer market.
Yeah.
You buy a higher, a higher alcohol or higher this or higher that, it's going to be the $9 pint versus the $6 pint or the $7. Like there's a range for every
Yeah,
day.
you'll see that variety all over. A lot of these builders, they're shooting for, I want to make something affordable, so the guy loading chairlifts can buy my skis.
Right.
So I'm gonna shoot for $650. Or you've got like a pair of skis that I brought over here from Connecticut, they're $3,000 retail. Full suspension, heavily machined aircraft aluminum and magnesium parts and carbon fiber armatures and stuff like that. But there's a full variety. And that's kind of the cool thing. That didn't really exist before, other than the
That's
super
great.
high-end stuff with diamond encrusted top sheets.
Let's get away from pricing for a minute. Who's got a question?
That Newtonian material that you're using, do you need it when you're skiing powder?
No, but if you ever hit ice after you hit powder,
Do you always ski powder every run?
Every day.
Where?
Holy powder.
you started skiing yesterday. Okay.
You don't
Sorry, you gotta build a powder ski.
You don't ski here.
We do build a power ski, but you can't buy it.
That's she had a question.
It's true.
Yeah, I have a question. Okay, so I
Speed up.
know what I like in a ski, but I would never be able to tell you how to make it for me. So, because I'm not like a gearhead. So how do you flush that out when you like, okay, like, I'm like, I like it like this. I mean, how do you get people to tell you what they want if they're not like?
Right, and my question is the same, because if we can't demo your product, which we're used to demoing a new tennis racket and a new ski, and if
Yeah,
we
reading
don't
reviews,
know
but,
what
yeah.
we really like and we can't demo your ski, how?
Then you read his ski review.
I've
I
yeah, right, there, yeah, so,
He's a guy.
no, that's a great question, and I get that question a lot, and it really comes down to my experience as a builder. And when you can go on my website and fill out your form and say, well, I want this kind of waist, and maybe that's all you know. You say, well, I want a ski that's 100 and 500 foot, and I like to ski trees and pow, and maybe I ski some bumps once in a while. And I said, okay, well, do you want rocker? Do you want full camber? And you'll make a choice. And from that initial conversation, I can make a drawing. And I can send you that drawing, and you can say, well, I really don't like the shape of that. What if you change this and that? Great, I'll make you a new drawing.
But it's still a drawing, right?
Right, but,
Yeah.
right, and then it comes down to how the material works, okay? Knowing how the wood thickness is going to react and how stiff that's going to make the ski, what type of fiberglass I'm going to use, am I going to put carbon fiber in that ski, and I can dial that in for most people pretty well.
We have to be translators, basically.
Yes.
Like
Good.
you have a pair of skis that you're like, oh my gosh, I love these skis,
Yeah.
K2 comps that I had in 1982. So you have a range of skis that you've skied on, and you're like, I really like these characteristics, but I wish they did this.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we can just have that conversation with you. And it's a back and forth. It's not like you order this, like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck in this. It's like, no, we go. There's a lot of emails and a lot of
I've
phone
sent people 10
conversations.
different drawings and descriptions of what I think the ski would do before they said, okay, that's what I want.
Have you ever had a pair returned?
No.
There you go.
Yeah, I've got one thing I would add to that, is that as a ski tester, I think you need to educate yourself about what features you like in a ski.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only way you're gonna know how something feels is by trying something similar, and it doesn't even have to be the same ski. I mean, I deal with a lot of clients who are asking me, what kind of skis should I buy, looking for some sort of answer. And I tell people never to buy a ski unless they've tried it, or tried something similar.
And I'm very upfront with people when I make them a model that's never been made before. I said, this is an untested model. Okay, I think it's going to do this based on my experience of how these materials and the way I'm going to build this. But that is maybe the one drawback is when you're ordering an untested model, it's untested.
Do you ever hear people just say, I just want you basically to recreate the ski?
Yeah, absolutely. That ski that's on the rack with the pretty snowflake on it, that was in Backcountry Magazine for their gear test last season.
But that was yours? Or
And that was mine, and
did they ask you to recreate like another?
yeah, I had somebody email me up, they looked at the magazine, said, oh wow, that's beautiful, I want that. And I'm very proud of that ski because as somebody who just started building skis for the fun of it, 5-6 years down the road, I send a ski to Backcountry Magazine, and it makes the cut and makes the magazine. Where that's not a magazine that you just send a ski and pay your money and they print it. They don't print the skis that don't ski well.
What type of wood is at the core of all of your wooden skis?
So again, when I buy wood from that guy, and actually his house is in Milton, drive over there, I pick up the lumber. Mostly maple, ash, there's a little bit of poplar. Sometimes some yellow birch. But it's all, the only thing that's not harvested in Vermont is the poplar, but it's probably 5% of the core, 10% maybe.
When you guys were starting out, what was the beginning process like? Like I think about, okay, I want to try and make a ski, and I have these ideas, I'll take it down the hill, and I may not know how to read it, but it might also explode. Like, who knows what we're going to get from the top to the bottom. Like, what was the beginning stages like of trying out new ideas? And
How many
trying out
swear
new
words
ideas?
can we use?
Well, I know, like, the first ski I ever built, like, so I used to build skis myself until I didn't, but the first ski we ever built, we never remounted. It was terrible. It was abysmal. And the second ski we ever built was even worse. The first one was like this thick, and it was a brick, and the other one was so flexible that you could like flex it in half. So,
I mean, here's the I'm not a fan, but here's the value of the internet. Skibuilders.com, 10 years ago, you could get a design for a basic ski that was usable. So your first product, if you kind of built what they called, saw as a generic ski, it was usable, and then you could tweak it and go from there. And that's how I got started. I always figured it was a process that was way beyond what I could come up with in terms of technology. How do you bond plastics? That's glue just peels right off of it. Well, that was all on the site, and it made it accessible.
So unlike the big ski companies where everything's done in the blacked out rooms and everybody's hush-hush, collaboration is a real thing here. I asked him before, it's
You
like,
have to go back 10 years. No, because all the people who are sharing all this wonderful stuff 10 years ago are now in business now. They're a little bit more guarded about their proprietary secrets.
I think there's layers there. I think there's layers.
Yeah.
As your volume increases, the amount of collaboration goes down, except for your artwork, because then there's always collaboration, unless you're an artist at the same time.
Yeah, I want to expand on this woman's question. Do all of you guys have wooden skis, and which species?
I'd say almost every ski has wood in it.
Yeah.
If someone ever says, "Oh, this ski has a wood core," it's a bunch of baloney because every ski has wood core. Unless it's that bad, or
You can buy
I
foam
would say
blanks.
some of the intermediate skis may have a composite core, maybe foam.
but in general, very
High-end
almost
stuff is
every
almost always wood.
Ski that you want.
any ski that you're gonna buy is gonna be wood. Unless you're buying a super low end rental ski or something.
It doesn't matter what species.
It's all preference. I mean, every wood reacts a little differently.
Yeah.
Has a different kind of pop, dampness, feel, vibration.
Well, and certainly because of density, there's a lot of the volume of a ski is wood, and so what species you use is going to affect the weight quite a lot. If you're climbing or skinning with a ski, you might go with softwood. I built skis with spruce or Doug fir cores.
Those honeycomb skis are long gone.
Tony Sailor.
Hexel.
How do you figure out the bonding of the dissimilar materials? You say you've got a wood core, you've got your high-tech Newtonian product, and they all work together and flex and not blow apart.
Epoxy.
A lot of epoxy.
But actually,
Epoxy doesn't.
But there's material
when
prep.
you put your base material.
You get- So the base material
But it
comes sanded and flame treated. Like there's certain treatments and you can buy it with that already, and it's made to bond with the epoxy, sold to bond with that. So it's all very specific for what you're doing. Just like, building a boat, fiberglass, epoxy, wood, same.
The biggest challenge is probably the metal to everything
And
else.
that comes pre-treated as well.
Plastic's
so.
difficult though, because even though, like my skis have a P-Tech sidewall, UHMW sidewall, and that may come treated on one side. Okay, and I bond that to hardwood, and then I rip it into strips. That means two other sides aren't treated or bonded. I have to braid that, and I have to flame treat it very carefully, and then I say a Hail Mary over it and hope that it sticks.
To get your top sheet and your other to it,
I have a question for Jay. So where do you get the idea in the early days of freestyle skiing, if no one had ever been doing that before, well, it probably came from moguls and the jumping era.
Skiing backwards, I would
Yeah.
say.
And
There-
snowboarding.
Yeah, so I snowboarded in like mid-90s when it was first blowing up, and I always skied my whole life, and I just became frustrated with, it got to the point where halfway through the day I'd be snowboarding and then I'd switch to my skis because I loved snowboarding. I could do so much more on the snowboard, and then when I went to my skis, I'd be frustrated saying, why can't I go backwards? Why are these so skinny? Why can't I, float in the powder? Why are they really long and hard to maneuver compared to my snowboard? So that drove me to just question for years thinking about it, and eventually as a college project, I had an opportunity to build something, and I decided, now I'm going to build a ski that's the exact same shape of a snowboard, 2 of them. And sure enough, when I did that, I could do most of the same things I could on my snowboard. So it was the fact that I was living in both those sports and grew up following a lot of the action sports, like the time cycling, just road bikes evolved into mountain bikes by just adding suspension, fatter, stronger materials, and BMX bikes the same way, and skateboards went from directional for surfing streets to symmetric and doing tricks. So it's just all around you, like no one really invents anything, you just look at something and then you think, how can I apply that to something else? That's how you may not even realize you did that later, but that's how it usually happens, I would, for most products.
Well, and the nice thing is that almost all of this innovation comes from people in their garages as opposed to corporate R&D departments. I mean, you think of the innovations that have gone on in recreational skiing and biking are the 2 great examples.
Yeah. If you look at like ski design in the past probably 10 years, the big companies spend so much money on a prototype. Somebody like me, I don't spend that much money on a prototype. I can build something off the wall for almost nothing compared to what they do. I actually think craft ski industry has driven the innovation for the big ski industry because they see what we're doing. Like they said, they're checking out stuff at SIA and ISPO. They're seeing what's out there. Craft ski industry has driven the ski design market without a doubt.
Just like beers.
Exactly.
You're just willing to experiment.
You've got
risks.
small builders who are willing to build an off-the-wall prototype, and hey, wow, it actually skis pretty well. And these big companies take notice. They have no idea who White Room is, but there are some bigger companies out there like ON3P who's made a big impact, and these big companies take notice. And I actually think it's driven the prices down. You look at like Dynastar Legend Pro. 10, 12 years ago cost $1,200. Nobody on that kind of scale, other than craft ski builders or custom ski builders, is charging $1,200 anymore. Craft ski builders can make it for less money, for equally as good, and it's driving competition and it's driving the prices down.
So how do you protect your proprietary?
I don't. You can learn all this stuff on the internet.
Move fast and keep innovating.
Yeah, but that's like, so on that, so when we went ISPO, there's a bunch of people like looking at it, whatever, and now I know that there's Head, Razi, and then another German company that are essentially ripping off whatever we've designed. We have a patent for it, so it's kind of a unique thing in the ski industry, but even then, it's more about move fast and break more rules than it is about suing them. If we can stay a step ahead of them, in the process, yeah, we can license it to them, or we can, whatever, have a lawyer knock on their door or something like that and strip them up. Great. Ideally, just license it to them. But the name of the game is what Burn did. They just stayed ahead of everybody else. They were always leading the charge, right? And that's why they were Burn. So because they weren't following anybody's rules. So you can't do that if you want to change an industry.
Yep. A lot of these small builders get really good at doing a couple of models that they do really well, and they get a cult following. And the big companies might, they copy the shaping, the camber. You can't really, trademark that stuff. and the composition, but they're still the personality of that ski. And you can talk to Keith O'Mara at Praxis and say, oh, your powder boards just rip. They're awesome. I love them. And they're the same shape as some others, but yours just feel better. That kind of word of mouth and cult feel, it spreads fast on the internet. There's a lot of that. And you get brand loyalty with a lot of, like On3P and Praxis and Wagner and, Ed Folsom Customs and all these guys. It's the same thing as, skis here. It's like, musical instruments are your favorite beer. You might be in San Francisco, but you're still going to grab a long trail, or if you can find a heady topper somewhere.
A couple more questions, and then we'll go to raffle time.
So I think there is no doubt that listening to ski on the snow gives you really good feedback, but it's hard when you shop online to test it on the snow, and especially for like small retailers. And I understand you can probably get a good feel for. To talk to a customer, you do a full custom batch. But still, like for me, there's a kind of some friction buying everything. And so last year I started measuring skis and getting the properties of the skis. Do you think it's useful to communicate that to your customers, to try to get them to, okay, you like that in the past, the ski I make is really similar, now here's some numbers. Do you think there's some value in that, giving more information, a little bit maybe like how they are doing it with golf or some other sport like that?
Sometimes it can be hard. It can be hard to translate. Like this is what you're telling me, but you may not be telling me the whole set of information. So
I think it's very relative.
Yeah.
Like what you think is a stiff ski, maybe I don't, or vice versa. So a number could work, but only if you measured every ski out there in the exact same way, I literally make 6 models of skis, and I have yet to find someone that isn't happy with one of them. And it's like these guys say, it probably works better when you tell me what you like and don't like about what you have, and I can pretty much nail it. But like if you said, hey, this is a Flex 42.5, Jay, do you have a 42.5? No, but I guarantee you're going to like this. I don't know if it's going to be that exact of a science. It's the same with length. Like you ski a 185, and I tell you, hey, this 183 is going to feel the same because the edge length's longer and whatnot. So, it's like a recipe. It's like I like the taste of this, and then a chef gives you something you didn't think you liked, and then you try it and you love it. So there's always that opportunity to go beyond what maybe you like today and try something different. And it is like food. You sprinkle a little more salt, it's totally different. You add a little more flex in the tip, but not the tail, it's totally different. And I don't make custom skis. I just know that these will fit, literally everyone that skis.
And he does offer a money-back guarantee.
Yeah, so that's how I do it. No one tries my skis, and I know, and there's reviews, and it works out. And I sell not just to kids, I sell to retired people, moms, dads, people in the park, the powder everywhere. But a lot of companies, they have 25, 30 different models because they have to address what the store needs and their price points. So you're dealing with making skis simply to hit a certain price instead of the fact that someone actually needs it. So building product only to sell direct to the end consumer, you can weed out a lot of unnecessary skis. So for instance, I just believe there's no such thing as a women's ski. Like a ski doesn't know your gender. It only knows how much you weigh.
I couldn't agree with you more.
It knows how much you weigh and how much force you put into the ski. That's what a ski can recognize. So the women's ski is for someone, really, technically it should be for someone that size, that weight, and that type of skier. Those are your parameters. You can.
We don't believe there's such a thing as a men's ski either, by the way.
No, it's just, there's a women's graphic.
Make it look like a TikTok box.
If you were to design an all-mountain ski, what would be the difference in your company's specifications?
That's a great last question. How much time do we got?
I don't have
I lost my watch.
It's 8 o'clock, yeah.
It's 8 o'clock.
It's 8 o'clock.
Yeah, so why don't we go, what's your ideal ski?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll just start with. All right.
Like what underfoot, what do you guys all think?
Here, let me jump in for just a second first. I've been making and testing skis for 10 years, and I don't know the answer to your question for me. All right? There's
It
so
depends
many
on the day.
variables.
Yeah, what day is it?
Subjective.
What day is it?
I'll throw it out there. I think that
I know
there's,
what
I think everyone at most needs only 2 skis anymore. Like everyone went to the extreme, crazy wide. What does this do for you? Crazy narrow, really soft. We've been to all the extremes, and really you need to ski under 100 if you're not going to ski a lot of powder, but you're going to ski up to, let's say, a foot of powder. Like a 98 waisted ski is perfectly fine, or it's fine on an icy day. If you want a deeper powder, you're going to go over 100. So there's really, in my mind, it's one or the other. Like if you want the biggest variety, it's in the high 90s, mid to high 90s. And if you want something for deeper days, then that can handle, which
So
is over a
everybody
foot
agrees
wide.
on the all-mountain
Yeah,
90
I mean,
underfoot?
East Coast, East Coast. You're in Stowe. You're in Stowe, so that's what I'm referring
I
to.
saw
Rumors.
our carving ski is 90 underfoot, and people were like, best all mountain ski I've ever had. And someone else rides a 98, like, best all mountain ski I've ever ridden. All right. It's just all for reference. It's just a.
Is it all mountain yesterday or
Yeah.
before it snowed?
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
See, I do this because I'm self-indulgent, and I want 4 pairs of skis, not 2 pairs of skis. But the thinnest pair I've got are 92 underfoot, so. And I ski on them more days than I do anything else.
There you go.
It's the ice coast.
It's
Yeah.
also preference. Like if you,
Yeah.
I know guys that call it their powder sticks that are like 70 underfoot. They're like, oh yeah, these are awesome. Right? They do.
It's
And,
all
ski 'em,
relative.
and they love them, so you can't blame them. You know, it's just, that's their thing.
Bobby.
I just want to ask a quick question. I'm a designer and of product, the guts of product, but also the exterior of product. And I feel that sometimes we get caught up in the exterior and not the guts. But I look at your skis, and I know the guts are really amazing, but I also think the graphics are really amazing.
You haven't
And
seen
I-
mine yet.
I did when they walked by, I saw them, but, so I go, as a consumer, I want the guts that are really good, but I just really want something great I can look at when I'm skinning uphill and breathing hard, or I'm on the lift. I want to look at something really amazing, so I'm just curious. It's a whole variety of graphics here. What drives you for
Yeah.
the graphics, or is the are the graphics
So
completely
I'll-
secondary? I don't
I'll
think the
take that
graphics are
one
secondary.
initially, and then
The guy that hand carves his
right.
letters.
The by far the most common thing people say about my skis are, "Wow, those are pretty." And I love that. I love the artistic aspect. I am an artist to some degree.
Clearly.
And I mean, those are the plain ones compared to some of the ones I've really produced. Those are really very plain compared to some of the others. And so, yeah, I mean, everybody can appreciate the aesthetic of the wood. And it actually, the wood top sheet does add some properties to the ski. If you got a plastic top sheet, that's inert. It's not doing anything. That 0.6 millimeter thickness wood veneer actually adds stiffness to my ski. And it adds some difference. If I built a ski that was the very exact same dimensions and core, and I stuck a plastic top sheet on it, and I put a wood top sheet on it, on the second set, the wood top sheet would be a little bit different because it actually adds something to the ski. And then, of course, the aesthetic quality of the wood. Lots of people can appreciate that, and people love that about my skis. But it really comes down to performance. I'm a skier at heart, and it's got to perform. It just can't be pretty.
People love graphics, so they buy skis for graphics, no question.
All the time.
No question.
Yeah, people buy my skis. They're pretty. I want a pair.
But what drives your graphics? Like, is it something you personally think is great, or you think it's something that's going to sell?
It's gotta be, well, both, it has to be, you know. I believe it's gonna sell because it looks good to me, and it definitely will look even better to the customer I made the ski for. So if it's a park ski, I'm getting in the mind of a park skier and saying, what are they into and what's their personality? And If it's someone that's, if it's a ski for just keeping your feet on the ground, then you're a more conservative skier. You probably want a more conservative graphic, but you want it soulful, you want it inspiring. Still, it has to look good, like any product, anything you buy. So I think those two things are absolutely critical. I mean, you could sell you probably could sell a pretty bad ski if it looked great. I mean, honestly, but at the end of the day, you tell someone and they wouldn't sell it again. The next person would buy it. So it has to have both ingredients really well.
One last question, anybody?
Sure, I have a question.
All right.
Oh.
Two last questions.
I've known Jason for a long time, but
I don't know that man.
we've been talking down on a lot of the larger companies. Clearly K2, they made the pontoon, they listened to Shane, they bailed you out, they let you take the ball and run with it. I think you could talk a little bit about how some of the larger companies have helped you and some of these smaller brands get to where we are in skiing today.
That's an awesome, you didn't hear me diss them. Because I wouldn't, because I know that, so when I first started making the twin tip skis, and there might have been there were definitely a couple other real small guys doing it. And then I went to the next trade show. Okay, so that year, I didn't sell any. I sold 5 to like friends. And then the next year, I went to the trade show. So now I've been doing it 2 years. No one's really paying attention. And I sold to only a Japanese distributor. They were crazy enough to buy 1,000 pair and put me in business. But in the US, I still hadn't sold more than a handful. So now I'm on my 3rd year, and I only have 1 customer in Japan. Well, I get to the trade show, my 2nd trade show, and I walk over to the Salomon booth, and they have the Salomon Snowblade. Well, those guys, in 1 year, put that product in every single on everyone's skier's feet. They were demo tents at the base of every mountain, every ski shop. It was in the shop, being sold. And they literally paid the X Games to put it in the X Games, that me and my friend Mike Nick went, and he got the gold and I got the bronze, put us on the map. So no one would have been convinced without the power of a big company with big distribution and marketing and sales. So there is a benefit. And if he wants to sell, for instance, the technology he's got, he'll keep selling 100, however many pair he'll sell. If it becomes something that he doesn't have to spend 20 minutes explaining, convincing, and having that consumer think, well, wait, if it's so good, why aren't other companies selling it? Suddenly other companies sell it, he'll sell more. He's got the latest technology that everyone else was already educated on. So big companies, their value is educating the masses, giving them an experience, making a new technology affordable. There are times they listen to athletes like the pontoon and make an innovation. I'd say definitely more times than not, someone like people sitting here are more willing to just take a leap of faith for the hell of it and make a crazy ski, and if it happens to work, go for it.
They have a lot less to lose.
Yeah, you got nothing to lose. And then for me, like K2 happened to be buying ski companies, Tubbs Snowshoes, all the local companies here left. They were buying, and I was in a bad situation financially, like I said. I ran out of money, and after 15 years, couldn't sell enough skis, and K2 paid off our debt and gave me a job, So kept my brand line in business. I learned a few things, and eventually, yeah, I'm doing my own thing. But I always say that was the case. So there's good and bad, and without the big companies, there wouldn't be, the finances and the marketing to keep magazines in businesses and movie companies and all that good stuff. But it also was extremely boring, very lame. Skiing was dying. They were doing nothing about that at the time that I started my company. And today, my goal is to, develop a business model that is sustainable as a very small operation, a couple people, whether you have a factory or not, that you can be in business, because I feel like what makes beer today so exciting is all the microbrews, and what makes music so exciting is there's more than just the big bands, and it's all the flavor. So the more flavor in any industry, the more innovation, the more excitement, the more enthusiasm, the better for that industry. And so it's important to have all levels, The big companies, sometimes the ones financially supporting it, the small ones are creating the new energy that's needed to propel it into the future and grow.
You had a question, and that'll be, this is the last question, so.
So we'll end where we started with the idea of disruption. And if you think ahead 5 or 10 years, how do you think you're going to disrupt the ski world? And the answer may have nothing to do with skiing, so just curious.
This guy's a disruptor. Come on, it's all in your hands, man.
My goal is to I'm gonna buy K2.
Done.
You gotta buy line with it though.
Perfect.
And marker and vocal.
That's a wrap.
It's been Rubbermaid.
I don't know. I mean, so like basically what Jay first did, he just disrupted the not just he disrupted. They may have put just in there. It was a big deal. He disrupted the design, right? And what I feel like all of us are doing now is disrupting the business model, right? I don't know what the next thing is, honestly. I mean, it could be back to design, it could be back to materials. I mean, yeah, our material is different, but the backbone of it, like we tried retail, didn't work at all. We sold exactly 0 skis, you know. So it, I'm not sure what the next disruption is going to be. Maybe it's going to go, the next push of materials be a big, you know, innovation in nanotechnology. You can have a ski that's half the weight, and you put a bunch of HCT inside, and you can have a ski that performs epically, but it weighs less than a can of beer or something like that. So I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think, I mean, the little guys are the ones that they don't have as much to lose. I mean, you know, if we're all in, it's just like, all right, your little savings account, you throw in, you make this kind of crazy idea, and you know, some companies like, it's a good idea. I'll just take that. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the next disruption is going to be. I mean, I guess ask me in 10 years, and hopefully I'll be on top of it or something. We'll be doing that kind of thing. But I don't know. I think like one thing that Burton always did well is they always like listen to their athletes, and they had to put a lot of money back into like the bottom of the funnel, essentially, like the feeder, you know, all the sponsorships and athletes and stuff like that. And I think no matter what you're doing, I mean, as long as you're as long as you're investing back into the broad spectrum of what makes a sport so awesome, which is the companionship, the camaraderie, the just hanging out with buddies and stuff. I mean, that's what really makes it go around. I mean, nobody goes in this industry saying, all right, I make millions of dollars, right? I mean, some people do, very few, but some people do. But it's all about, you know, having fun and whatnot. So I think it's almost, I mean, like think what Jay did, right? He made like skiing fun again back in, you know, when people were doing ski ballet.
Ski ballet was a few years back.
Yeah.
Don't try to pin that on.
This is before I was born, so I'm sure.
I was late.
He just called you old.
I am old.
I was late 70s.
Can I add on to that? I think what I've noticed is people want to be part of the story now. They want to hear your story. They want to be involved in that story. And so they're done kind of like, you know, the world expands, but now we have access to so many things online. You can order whatever you want any minute of the day. You can talk to a ski maker halfway across the world and get ideas. So I think people just like to be part of that story. So I don't know if it's much as a disruption as like, people just like to be involved in the culture and like kind of lift everybody else up.
To move back to the grassroots. I mean, I wish all these guys well, but I love the idea of people feeling like they can build their own skis. I mean, obviously not everybody's going to, but for me it's been just a spectacular hobby, and I'm not naturally talented at it. And it's worked out really well. Yeah, no, that's what I mean. And the information is out there, it's
and
accessible.
you're doing workshops, so if you want to build a ski but you don't have the tools or any clues, you go hang out with him and he's going to help you do it.
And there's tools that I don't let people use because they'll
Just a couple extra fingers hanging around.
I'll claim the biggest disruptor is finding a way to grow skiing again, because it's on a decline. It's flattered down. Okay, you got climate change, but you also just have a lot of competition of other activities, especially for kids. So that's the biggest challenge this industry has is if everyone found one person that doesn't ski regularly and gave them their old gear and brought them to the mountain and got them addicted to it, that would be the greatest thing to ever happen to skiing, you know, moving forward.
There you go.
That's a problem.
on the board of Vermont Ski Museum, and I just wanted to thank you guys. This is amazing. And what I think is incredible is we've seen the full circle. Vermont is where skiing started. It's where history started. We heard from Grant Reynolds. We can see basically all of the things that created the sport here. And it's really, really exciting to see how you guys take it forward. So thank you. Also, in another role, I'm the editor of Vermont Ski and Ride magazine, and and I say that because we have done extensive profiles on each of these ski builders, which you can find at vtskiandride.com. And Eric has done the most extensive, exhaustive ski reviews I've ever read. And we're in the process of editing them, and they will be up this week, of all of these skis. And I used to be an editor at Ski Magazine. I have never seen such in-depth, honest, really, really informative ski reviews. So I encourage you either to go to exoticskis.com or vtskiandride.com.
When Eric sent me the draft of what he was going to write about my skis, it took me 15 or 20 minutes to read it. It was literally pages and pages
14,000 words.
and
I'm not
pages
kidding.
of information, and I was like,
Your legs
wow, I
your
didn't
legs
even
hurt
know that
after.
about my own ski.
But what Lisa wanted to know is what Vermont beverage matches the ski's personality?
Yes. We have that for all of these skis. So you can pick your favorite microbrew and pair it with your favorite micro. Just two more quick things is we're really, really grateful. I mean, honestly, the crowd here is like a who's who of skiing as well. So thank all of you for coming out. And I'm not going to call out names, but at some point we might tap a number of you guys to come up here and sit here. What we're trying to do with the Ski Museum is really bring people in, show you not just the past, but the present and the future, and get everybody really excited about joining in. We'll be having more talks, more movies, more discussions. So please sign up for our Facebook page, become a member if you haven't already. We've got a great deal, $25, and you get $1,400 of coupons and lift tickets. And we have this amazing raffle.